Hello, everyone. My name is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought on another fantastic group of independent comic book creators, publishers, artists, writers, the whole thing. So here we go. And without further ado, let me start bringing them on. First, we have our co-host.
Hello, welcome to Indy Comics Explained. This is Mark Torres from Came from Radio, the official The Big Apple Con, as your official co-host for this week.
Yes, thank you, sir. Don't mind me. StreamYard is complaining to me. I got to click a bunch of buttons.
So while he's doing that,
Yes, go ahead. Go, Mark. Go.
is anybody who's here also watching the football game? Because I am a huge 49er fan. So everybody, let's go 49ers in the chat, doing some 49er love.
Oh, nice. Okay. I don't know all about that, but let's bring in Felix. What's up, Felix?
You're muted, Ray.
Ray, you're muted. The one time we need you to talk.
Muted, Ray. Ray, you are muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry.
There we go.
I was a 49ers fan when I was a kid.
Yeah, Joe Montana.
There you go. Jesus. All right. Let's keep it moving. So, Ray, introduce yourself.
I'm Ray Felix. Hold on, I gotta tell. I don't know if you guys can hear my wife in the background, but
Hey, Ray's wife. Welcome to Indy Comics Explained. That is Ray Felix and his wife.
yeah, sorry. I had to mute myself there. Yeah, so I'm Ray Felix, Bronx Heroes Extraordinaire. I do a little bit of everything, comics, comic conventions. Been trying to get a comic convention off the ground for the last 2 years. But because of COVID, things have been, you get things set up and then things get canceled. But that's me. And my new book is Punchline Clown Detective, which I'm actually lettering issue number 7 as we speak.
Nice. Okay, cool. Mr. Deandre, how are you, sir? Introduce yourself, please.
Hey, it's good to be back on. I am Deandre Marcus McNeal, writer, artist, and also editor and founder at OdysseyComics.com. Just recently wrapped up my very first Kickstarter for my own book. Actually, it's the second one for the company. First one for me personally, called Legend of the Thunder Guard. So we're in active development on that right now, with other things coming down the pipeline too.
Gotcha. All right. Don't mind me. Like I said, I'm fighting with Facebook right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Facebook says you don't exist.
Yeah. Facebook's like, screw you, buddy. We're not going to show you, but I'm going to hook this up. Okay. I see what they want me to do. What's up, Ryan? How you doing?
What's going on, everybody? I'm Ryan Kroboth. I'm an artist and illustrator. I do the comic book Sunmaker. I also do some coloring on some other books. And hey, congrats on your first successful Kickstarter, Deandre.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now the hard part comes, the real hard part.
This is true. And John can tell you all about it. How you doing, John?
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm John Edingfield II. I'm the creator and artist for the book Rancidville. I'm also the publisher of Not So Fair Tales, which I funded last June, and I'm still waiting to get the books to fulfill. So,
all right, cool. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Like I said, I'm having some technical issues. I'm gonna work on those, but before I start working on those, I'm gonna ask a question, right? One I think that affects all of us. So, to start off with, who inspires you to be a better creator, right? And then to go along with that is, who inspires you to become a better promoter? Okay, so it's a two-part question there, and let's start with Mr. Ray Felix. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm first. Who inspires me to be a better creator? That's a hard question. Well, I would say who inspires me to want to do better. I look at our indie cohorts, Sam Vera and his crew, and I really am amazed how much content they've put out and since his comeback, and that inspires me to do stuff. Who inspires me as an artist? I get inspired by lots of stuff, like everyday things. Just artists in general. Like I love looking at the most uncommon artists, like Basquiat really inspires me. I would say like artists that are not specifically comics, so to speak. Writers like William Blake or Alan Moore, and then of course Kirby. I love Kirby stuff. Looking at his stuff, I always want to just rip all his panels. I love his composition. He is great. I just bought the Eternals omnibus, and I'm just loving it. I don't understand why people were complaining about this guy. This guy's amazing.
Complaining about who? Kirby?
Yeah, when I was a kid, everyone's like, "Oh, Kirby sucks." I've heard professionals say that in interviews when I was a kid. I used to work in a comic book store. Everyone used to dog Kirby all the time, especially for Commandy. They used to dog him for Commandy, his work on DC. And I think some of his best stuff, to be honest. I think it's great. Even his Tops comics, I thought they were great.
No, I mean, look, I agree with you. The thing is, we were all young and uneducated back then, and it sometimes takes a while for some of us to catch on. Because I know I was that way. Any of you guys feel that way about Kirby?
I remember when I was a kid, we were actually looking at one of those old, like the omnibus, like the reprints of the comics from when Kirby did it. And I remember this was in the 90s, and my friends and I were like, why do they look so different? Why do these guys look like the kid versions of themselves? So we didn't appreciate it at the time. We were teenagers, stupid teenagers.
Right, exactly. That's what we were kids, and we didn't know any better. You have to, like, for us, I think for myself, I think I had to walk through Walter Simonson, right, and then get to Kirby, right, to really appreciate it. Walk through Walter Simonson, walk through Mike Mignola, right, and then get to Kirby. You need that frame of reference.
I would also hear that Jim Lee said in an interview once, which is not that long ago. He says, "Everyone calls Kirby the king, but it's more about quantity and not quality." I was like, "What? How could he say that?" I was like, "That doesn't make any sense."
No,
I think when it comes down to it, it's there can be better artists. There's always someone who could have more technical skill, but art is also very subjective too. I think Kirby's strength and why he became such the icon that he is his strength of his own particular style and the strength of storytelling. Sometimes people confuse visual storytelling and art and conflate the two things together. You can be probably not all that fantastic of a visual artist, but as a visual storyteller, you could be amazing. How you set your panels, how you stage a scene, how you create what a writer puts on. And I think that's one thing you cannot really hold against Jack Kirby at all when it comes to storytelling and comics and what we understand as a comic book panel today. He killed it. He provided the template everyone's still using right now.
And you have to also take into consideration some things are considered higher up on the totem pole because of when they came out at the time. So, like the first talking movie, like, holy crap, it was such a big deal. But you see that now, like, it was the big deal. So back then, no one had ever seen anything like that. So right there, it's such a huge jump from what everybody was expecting to what they got. So maybe nowadays, today's audience will be like, but you also have to consider when it came out at the time.
True. I think Kirby was amazing because before Stan Lee and Kirby, you had Joe Simon and Kirby 20 years before. So since the inception of comics, he was always in demand.
All right. Before we get down this rabbit hole, let's move on with that question. Deandre, you're next.
Sorry.
What was the question again?
Who inspires you to be a better creator and a better promoter of your work?
It sounds corny to say, but I think who really inspires me are the people that I work with. Team at Odyssey is about 5 or 6 of us deep right now. With my busy schedule, both publishing and doing my own work, I don't have a lot of time to read. I don't have a lot of time to keep up with other artists and other people. Where I get my juice from, the things that keep me going is the people that I work with, what they're doing, the energy I get from them, They inspired me to be a better creator because I want to put on for them, of course. It inspires me to be the best marketing I could do. Days when I don't want to talk to anyone and I want to shut all my social media off and delete all the accounts and things like that. You know, their projects are the reason I keep going and keep waking up, and I lose the sleep and all those sort of things, man. When it comes to me personally, I grew up a huge John Romita Sr. fan. Jack Kirby was another one. As I got older, artists like Bruce Timm, Batman the Animated Series was huge. Those are things that really inspire me as a artist and creator. But as far as what I'm waking up and I'm doing every day, it's got to be the people that, you know, I keep close to me and I'm involved with, and I'm doing this whole comic book thing for. And as long as I keep that in sight, I get all the energy I need to get this whole crazy thing done.
All right, and we all know it's crazy. So, Ryan, man, who inspires you, sir?
So it's kind of unfair. The person that inspires me is actually on this call with us right now. So the person that inspires me is John. Like, him and I have been working together forever. Like, we started out in we met in a makingcomics.com course, and like we kind of started off our careers at the same point. Like we just sort of like hooked up, and at any point, like, we're like, hey, you know, what are you doing on this? You know, what are you doing on this? And like, we've constantly pushed each other forward. So it's been super awesome. So I like right there, like he's my go-to guy. And for promotion stuff, like there's a lot of people that I get like really cool ideas from. Some of the people from my comics launch course, like Charlie Stickney, Kevin Joseph, Clay Adams, like they're doing like some crazy stuff, and like it's really cool to see like how everybody takes their own little trajectory.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
I was so close. I had a 1 out of 5 chance of being his inspiration.
You were the second one. I just didn't have enough time.
Ah,
Too much time on Kirby. Sorry.
Nice. So John, who's your inspiration?
Well, Ryan stole my thunder because I'm my own inspiration. So no, I'm kidding. Yeah, Ryan is a big influence on my stuff. I mean, if you go back earlier, if we want to look at early indie creators, I mean, Wendy and Richard Pini were really some of the biggest inspirations for me in the ElfQuest stuff when I was younger. I'm much older than all of you here, so you know.
I don't know about that. You'd be surprised.
Yeah. So you know, Stan Sakai, you know, Usagi Yojimbo is one of my favorite comics ever. So, you know, that's where I started. But yeah, being with people like Ryan, and he mentioned some other people that we are associated with, like Clay Adams, and even a guy named Rob Mutari who does Night Wolf. I mean, these are incredible people that I've been able to take inspiration from. And, you know, promotion, I mean, really, Tyler James Vogel is the guy that I really look at to do promotion and stuff, because he's just, you know, he has his imprint Comics Tribe, which he's a publisher of that, but he has a bunch of courses that Ryan and I have taken, and you know, I wouldn't be anywhere with that if I hadn't. Actually, if you really go to it, it's all Ryan, because after we took the course, the Making Comics course, we stayed in touch and we chatted online, and then he's like, oh, you gotta follow Tyler. So I started following Tyler. So, oh, you gotta take the comics launch course. So I was on the comics, and you gotta do list launch. So I did list launch. You gotta be part of the mastermind, and now you gotta do comics experience courses. And it was all Ryan, you know, gentle pressure, relentlessly applied. You know,
I'm gonna be the only one spending all the money.
How about it?
Nice. Yeah, I've taken those courses. I would probably do better if I actually followed them. So that should be my new Year's resolution right there.
Yeah.
Mr. Torres, who inspires you?
The inspiration I find comes from all the people we've had on the show, all the people we talked to, all the independent guys. Some of these guys, I mean, we've been on the show since 2003, so we've had a lot of people, and some of these people we've talked to, the progression from where they were back then in 2003, 2005 to now, I'm like, wow, look at them. They did so well. The biggest name I would drop would be Greg Pak. We had him as a guest on the show a long time ago when he was living on his friend's couch, and he was doing an independent comic called The Searchers or The Specialists, something like that. And then he went on to do The Incredible Hulk, which is my favorite character. So I was like, wow, look at him, make it through. So that would be my inspiration is all these guys who are all hungry and trying for the same thing that we all want is to be successful and get your stories out there to see where they are and where they are now. Marketing, oof. I think I better start following some more marketing people.
Gotcha. For myself, like I said, I think it's a couple of names we already know. It's people like Gaiman and Moore and Roger Zelazny and Frank Herbert and people like that. And as far as promotion, the guy that I've been paying a lot of attention to is Tim Lim and his crew with Common America. Those guys. Wait, hold on. Let me just pull this up real quick. Mr. J had a family emergency, so he called out sick. So that's for you, Marvin. I think the Common American guys, and obviously Tyler's the guy that I listen to. I listen to the podcast, and that dude is all over it. But it's like I said, I have to be a better student. That's usually my problem. Mr. Mark, you're up.
All right, so let's see. I'm gonna since I mentioned Star Wars earlier, or did I mention Star Wars? Maybe I was just thinking about Star Wars.
Your voice is in your head.
Yes, it's possible. So my question to the creators on the panel on the dais: at what point, or is there a point where your creation gets to be the fans, or what responsibility do you have to your fans to create something? So the background of the story is that Star Wars, most recently, they came out with the Book of Boba Fett, and they're talking about how this is saving Star Wars, and then somebody are like, well, this is not the Star Wars I want to be, and then as you know, internet is always yelling and crazy about stuff. So at what point does George Lucas, or now Disney, have to the fans, or is it all just about making the money and nobody cares about the fans? What do you guys think about that? For your particular creations? Mr.
Deandre, you'd be up next.
That's a good question, and it's something that I've thought quite a bit about. Before I did Legend of Thundergar, I bounced around so many ideas that were good, but like not really something that I felt comfortable producing myself and writing and making that commitment to. And I was really wondering what was the wall that I was going up against creatively in regards to why I wasn't feeling confident about going forward with them. And I think it came down to me trying to create the comics that I thought people wanted to read rather than something that was personally important to me, something that I wanted to make. So I really had to get in touch with what drove me as a creator and with the things that I really wanted to do and I felt passionate about. And I stopped worrying about who would read it, who wouldn't read it, how they would receive it, whatever the case would be. Start first and foremost with a story that was important to me. I think as things progress and you find an audience, you find a base and people respond to it. And you do a good enough job of establishing the property and the lore and everything like that, there becomes, you do have to satisfy the fans. And I hate this thought that all of a sudden, for whatever reason these days, giving the fans anything that they want equates fan service. I think it should be the goal of every creator to make their fans happy. And that's kind of what we do things and make it make it successful and things like that. But you shouldn't be pandering. That's a completely different thing. So I think first off, you have to have the narrative integrity of doing what you believe as a creator is important and right for the property first, but also marrying that with the expectations of fans and how they receive it and what they come to expect from your brand that you have and the stories that you're telling. And when you betray those things, like say in the tone of something like Game of Thrones, the final season of that one became kind of like the antithesis of what the show was prior to that. That's when you lose people. It's not necessarily about rewarding people's theories or dropping Easter eggs and everything, but you have to do things that are basically delivering the promise of what you established before. And when you're not true to that, that's when things go wrong and things turn against you. So in that respect, yeah, you do have to be beholden to the expectations that you yourself gave the fans to start with.
Nice, cool, okay, all right. I don't think I'll have to answer the question, but Ryan, please feel free.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much covers everything.
Sorry about that.
No, that was a really good answer. I mean, like for me, I'm not really at that level yet where I have to really worry about that. I'm also doing more short works, like stuff that's like 3 issues or along those lines. I think like if you're working on something that's a little bit longer, that's going to be where like your fans are going to be more involved and like probably help shape how it creates. But I mean, like, I'm all about like working, giving people what they want, but at the same time, you still have to know what you want. It's a balance.
All right, cool. Mr. John, how do you feel?
Feel pretty good. Actually, I agree with everything. Let me since you premised it about Star Wars. I mean, I've been a fan for 43 years since I saw the very first movie in the theater in 1978. So, and I'm still a fan. I'm not disappointed. I think that things have changed, but I do think that, we have to make a story that our audience wants. But again, we can't pander to that. But if you take it as the example of Disney, they don't care. They're so massive that the fan retention isn't their game anymore. For us as indie creators, that's our biggest thing is fan retention. How do we continue to gain our audience and get a bigger foothold in the industry? But at some point you got to make the story, like Deandre said, that you want to make. You're telling the story that is coming from inside of you. And that's the most important thing. And if one person likes it more than you, then that's one person. And that's awesome,
All right, cool. Mr. Felix, how do you feel about it?
I don't know why a lot of people don't like the Boba Fett show. Honestly, I was just having this conversation with my buddy Chris earlier. I was like, Boba Fett collectively in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back probably had 10 minutes worth, maybe less, of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
And he became popular just from that, right? And then, of course, if you read the Marvel comic books, it was a different Boba Fett than what we saw. He wasn't a clone, from, and all that stuff. Or if you read the novels, different person. Right. So I thought that the show was amazing because it really intricately tied everything. And I like The Mandalorian as well. The Mandalorian to me is more like a spaghetti Western. Mm-hmm. But Boba Fett is like the Seven Samurai, to me. It's like, and it has that. They even have scenes where they shot that were right out of Lawrence of Arabia. So they're really artful. Like they're taking shots from other classic movies and putting it in there. And it's really about character building. And I think character building, it may drag, but you're building a character and establishing something that didn't exist really beforehand. We just know about Jango Fett and a bunch of clone troopers and this little kid who couldn't act and didn't have any lines. You know what I mean? It's like I look at it like when you're painting a canvas and you got to like take a step back and say, well, what are we really looking at? What are we gonna sacrifice all of this Boba Fett for this? Who wasn't even the same actor for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? Are we gonna hold on to that? Are we gonna keep one element and sacrifice the whole painting? Are we gonna sacrifice that little piece so we can have broader brushstrokes and a broader vision for who this character is? And I thought it was done well.
Okay, but how does that relate to you and your work?
Well, as an artist, sometimes you have to sacrifice the things you love the most because there's a certain element, again, just like the painting, like sometimes when I was a painter and now as a comic book artist, sometimes you just want this one line or this one thing to work. Like I was just stuck on this line, this phrase of saying that I wrote in my first draft of this script while I was writing. And then like in the middle of the night, like one of my teacher's voices, I don't remember his name or one of my writing teachers from SVA, but one thing that he said to me was, writing is rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, man, I got rid of that line. I really wanted it. I felt like it worked. It made the whole story work. But then I was like, it just popped in my head. Writing is rewriting. I have to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm going to build this whole story around this one phrase or this one scene, you might just end up screwing the pooch and not looking at the bigger picture of how, well, now you're looking at the script a few months later. Nobody's seen it except for me. So is it really that important? Other people have no idea what I wrote. They're not going to say, hey, you changed this because nobody knows, right? So it's like, as an artist and a writer, you have to be your own editor sometimes and take that bold move and say, I don't know where I'm going, but the story carries you. Sometimes you can't overthink things. Yeah, this was my intention, but the story created a life of its own, and now it's taking me in this other direction, and I have to kind of trust this unknown part in my brain that's saying, no, go this way, So I hope that answers your question.
John says, be true to your vision as a creator. And then he adds, Boba Fett lost his mystery.
But so did Logan when they called him James, right?
There you go. Exactly.
So let me throw a quick follow up. So is everybody familiar with the series How I Met Your Mother?
No.
Not remotely, no.
What?
So it was a series that was beloved, and according to the writers and the creators of the series, they had a plan when they first made the show. The show evolved and moved on, became incredibly popular and famous. And then when it got to the ending, they decided to stick to their original plan, which people were highly upset about because it didn't, quote unquote, follow the arc of the natural progression of the show, despite the fact that the original creators, that was the original plan to start with. So being true to yourself, being true to the fans, at what point, who gets what? Where are we at? So that way you can draw that line. Where's that line at? If anybody can jump in.
All right, look, since I haven't answered the question yet, for myself, I have to be true to myself and to the story. So for me, if I feel that's the direction the story has to take, that's the direction the story has to take. Because you can have people reading your story and they might have 50 other directions they want. They're like, it could go this way, it could go this way, it could go that way, right? But only I know the true direction of that story. So maybe that was the direction the story was always supposed to go in, because that was always their intention. It's just the fans came up with 42 other plots, and that's on them. I can't answer to everything they come up with. I didn't hire them. I hired the people in the room that's working with me. If you're on that TV show, right?
Well, Tarantino says I actually made it. When fans say, "Oh, you should have did this, you should have did that," he said, "Well, did you hire the actors? Did you get the crew? Did you get the budget? Did you?" There's a fan can give their 2 cents and say this is the way it should have went, but why didn't you do it? If that's the way it should have went, where's your vision? Let's see what you got. Right. It's easy to make a criticism, but do you have the balls to actually take the risk involved to make an actual feature movie? And put all your cards forward and put your money in there, and so that's the other thing.
It doesn't even have to be a movie; it just be a comic book. John,
yeah.
It looked like you had something to add. Were you gonna say something?
No.
No. All right.
I'm just amazed they actually ended How I Met Your Mother. I thought it was just going to go on forever and never happen.
Well, with that, there's a number of shows like that. Like if anybody ever watched Dexter, did anybody ever watch Dexter?
Yeah.
The way that ended, I found it very disappointing. But I'm just a fan. It wouldn't stop me from watching the next series, though I don't have Showtime. there's lots of things like that. There's a balance between what's, doing fan service and doing what your vision is. And like I said earlier, I mean, in reference to Disney, they don't give a shit. They don't care. They're going to do whatever they want. Fans wanted more Boba Fett. They gave it to them, and now fans are all, mad that they gave him Boba Fett. It's like, so there's no way to win in that. So you just have to move forward. People are going to hate regardless of what you do.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said too about how things kind of take on a life of their own. I know one thing that had been in the news lately was Fight Club, because it's it came out about like a certain edited version for Chinese audiences and things like that, and then it's got people speaking in general about the differences between the novel Fight Club and then the movie itself. And everyone who has read the novel knows that the movie changes the ending. The ending for the movie is different. The fan servicey thing in that regard would have been if David Fincher stuck to the original ending of the book and delivered that, because people who were familiar with it would be like, oh yeah, they ended it went exactly the way that I expected. But he decided that how that ended isn't right for the medium of film that they're doing, and he recognized that doesn't create an actual satisfying resolution to a 2-hour movie that you're sitting down in the cinema watching. So he changed it to something different that he thought would resonate with the audience more. So I think in that regard, that's when you have to make a decision, especially of something that like you're not even you're adapting for something else. In that way, servicing the fans is giving them the opposite of what they want. They think that they want that original ending, but you have to understand the life that the project has, and you're doing it in a specific sort of way. So maybe even if you change it, it still is better overall than just sticking to what fans might have expected, because you're giving them an option they didn't even know that they wanted. And if it works for the project and it works for the story, then they're going to be happy with it regardless. And if they're not, you took a shot and tried to stick to your guns about something.
Yeah, I think I should get together with a bunch of Star Wars fans and just do an entire deconstruction of Boba Fett.
Sign me up for it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be unpopular here and quote somebody that's not liked in Hollywood anymore, but
there you go.
This has carried me a long way when I was young, as a young man, before he was defamed. Bill Cosby, the once great Bill Cosby says, I don't know the key to success, but I know the key to failure is trying to please everyone. Now, and that always carried me as a young person, saying, you can't please everybody. Now, of course, we didn't know that he meant giving Mickeys to women and
allegedly.
He was acquitted. He's good. He's out of jail now. It's all over. It's
time served. That's like I say, time served. But people say he got off. I was like, no, it was 3 to 15 years. He did 3 years. That's time served. He did a sentence. It's like not to defend the guy, but legally he served his time.
He did serve his time.
But he was a big inspiration to me as a kid. I was like, a big Huxtable fan. Watch all the shows, all the tie-ins, and all that stuff. So,
listen. All right, so let's move on. All right, check this out. So, as a creator, right, we all go through this, right? We'll go through. We're creating our books. We're making our books, right? And we always get asked this question, right? Are you doing this work to make money, or are you doing this work because it's a labor of love, or both? Right? Because we all get hit with that, right? Are we doing this for the cash, or are we doing this because this is just something we got to do? Ryan, you're up.
I don't really make a ton of money off of it. I like doing what I do and then taking it to Kickstarter, and then the people fund the print costs of the book. So to me, that's like it's still like making money off of it, even though it's really just making you kind of break even after out-of-pocket costs. But I do a lot of stuff where I'll do art trades, and I'll just do pinups for people and stuff like that, just because I don't know, I'll love a book, and I'll just be like, I just am really inspired to draw something. So to me, it's not too much about the money. I like making money to put back into it. So whatever I make from stuff, I always it's its own little fund, and then I always invest it back into doing more. So like when I take the coloring courses that I've taken and stuff like that, like I've taken anything I made off of commissions and then put that aside. And then like when I made up enough money to take the advanced coloring course, for example, then it's like investing back into myself. I try to do that, but I'm not like, it's not my primary motivating objective.
So what if Disney came along and said, "Here's a truckload of money, make something crappy"? Would you do it?
I would know it's a fake bot, and it would be it's a scam. And as soon as I click that link, my computer is filled with malware.
You'd be sitting there going, "Mark, stop pulling my leg. Leave me alone." Nice. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't make any money doing what I'm doing. I mean, I break even, like Ryan said, and if there is a little bit, I reinvest it. I did have a job where I made money in my 20s. I did political cartoons for a newspaper, and I worked in the graphics department. The thing with working for someone else is you have to do what they want. You have to draw what they want and create what they want, and you're following someone else's vision. Much like breathing, I have to draw and create. So I do it regardless. There's an avenue now for me to get a book made through Kickstarter that wasn't available, 10 years ago. So, it's and if I have a few copies to sell at a con and can make some, lunch money to buy Ryan a sandwich or something, so be it.
Chick-fil-A.
Rules. Chick-fil-A rules.
Oh, I love Chick-fil-A.
All right. Cool. Mr. Felix, profit or art?
Well, I just did the San Diego show a few months ago, and I was shocked that I made less money at San Diego than New York Comic Con. I was like, wow, I invested a hotel, invested plane tickets, a table, badges, the whole 9 yards, And I thought it was going to be a good show, and I was literally walked out of there with it's $750. Horrible. Terrible for a show, right? Of that magnitude.
That was Thanksgiving Day weekend, right?
Thanksgiving Day weekend. Oh. And then I was talking to my buddy Fabrice, and he was like, "Oh, the show was terrible. I only made $2,500." I was like, "Well,
you're like, well, silly, right?"
Yeah, the Spider-Man noir lore, like the creator of Spider-Man. I was like, "Well, I made $750." He said, "Yeah, but you're indie."
You're not supposed to make any money.
I draw Spider-Man. So I was like, go ahead.
Let me just lord it over you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just like, I don't make as much money as I used to. I used to be a school teacher in New York. I made a decent amount of money. I don't do that anymore. Now I'm a school teacher in New Jersey. The money numerically is supposed to be the same, but by the time you're done through your taxes in New Jersey, and I live in New York, so I get taxed by New York and New Jersey, I make almost 50% of less of what I used to make. So it's not, I can't be like whimsical and say, let's just keep making comics and losing money. So, but I think the Kickstarter thing, which all you guys, especially you, JD, you do some amazing Kickstarters. I follow your stuff, and I feel that you guys are inspiring me to try to do a Kickstarter, because I did a Indiegogo years ago and made $45. So I was like busting my tail. But I think it's time to do the Kickstarter again, especially after going the publisher route and getting screwed by the publisher, and not getting the money that they owed me. And, so I was just like, I think it's time to go do the Kickstarter and cut out the middleman, so. Yeah. We'll see. I'll let you know in 6 months.
So we'll listen. We will help you promote. That's what we're. Cool. We'll let people know. Deandre, what do you got?
I guess, a little bit of both. I'm lucky enough to have the means to be able to publish myself and not have to go through anything. And doing decent enough at the early going of trying to build a publisher to have these early successes and things. Anybody who is entering the field of comics hoping to make money and be a rock star should probably rethink their life decisions. It's not the place to do this. It's the passion driving me 100%, because I knew from the moment that I read my very first comic book that I wanted to do it. And the joy that I get isn't from getting money. If I get to keep the lights on, and fund some projects and have enough fluidity in the business to be able to do things, that's good enough for me. I'm not taking salary. I'm doing comics, not paying myself anything, just trying to cover production, take care of other creators and make sure that they're treated fairly and they're compensated fairly and paid fairly. And if I make an extra dollar on top of that, that's all I need. But at the same time, also being a publisher, and this is the thing, because we're a little bit different, because I take open submissions from people, and I'm always there, available, always to read and give feedback and things like that. And sometimes I get people that are like, well, hey, can you do this, or maybe we could do this, and let's do it digital instead. And it's just like, hey, like the answer's still no. Like I try to have a great ethos as a publisher and really be there to make myself available to help and develop, creators who want to do things. But at the same time, I'm not a charity. I have to make books that are marketable and that people want to read and they have to buy. So, the artist in me wants to see someone else do their book and be successful and has that thing. The businessman in me knows that I have a limited, capacity of what I can do financially, and I have to make the best decisions for the company as a whole, and not do things like that. So it gets tough in those sort of decisions.
Do you ever get that person who's like, "Hey, listen, man, here's my book. I need a $25,000 advance. Go."
It's like sometimes, the great thing that I'm trying to do with Odyssey is we do Kickstarters and everything like that, but it's a supplemental method for us. If I want to do a book, I'm making a book. So if I can get the Kickstarter and Kickstarter successful, that's cool. If it ends up failing, cool too. I'm still going to do it. So this is like having that like flexibility and that ease allows the pressure to be like a little bit lower. But at the same time, it's like, you'll get people who, I want 50% advance and things like that. Well, you never worked with this person before and never did it. And, everyone's trying to grease you a little bit when they see that you are willing to do a little bit more than some other people are, especially new people in the independent space. And you have to protect your business and what you're doing at that point in time. I give a lot of leeway. I do probably 50% more than most other publishers would ever do for anyone. And I got to stick to that and know that I'm doing right by people. And if anybody wants any extra on top of that, they're probably being, advantageous or trying to take advantage of it a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely the line you got to walk, and it can be hard.
Gotcha. John says, labor of love, because I'm old. There you go. I know what that is.
It is a labor of love. It is, but it does get expensive, like as an indie guy, I always like to work with a lot of guys that used to be in the industry. And I've built a network of a lot of guys that were like retired and stuff, and working with them because I like that time period of the 70s and 80s of comics. And I just kind of do like my draft pick of who I want to work on my book. So, like the Punchline book, I'm doing everything myself because I got frustrated with working with other artists. But with Black Power, Trevor Von Eden has always been the number one pick for me. And, and it's good that I can call him and say, hey, I got something to work on. And then, literally, he's so quick, he literally cranked out like issues 5 and 6 in a month and a half.
Wow.
And you're not going to find that with another indie artist. And I worked with other indie artists, and it takes longer. Sometimes you're waiting a year, 2 years, maybe more than that. And even some professionals, like other unmentionable professionals that I worked with, and it's taken them literally a minimum of 2 to 3 years to finish one issue. It's just like, I'm dying here. It's like.
It's the rule. You can get, what is it? You want somebody good, fast, and cheap, but you can only get 2 out of the 3.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
I've been lucky enough to find one person where that doesn't hold true with. Like they're cheap, they're good, and they're fast. And like,
who's that guy? Spread him
I will
around.
not share my sources. Absolutely not. He's mine, and I will keep him until I die.
He prints his name as a
find a
pseudonym.
comic and read the name and look him up.
Just do what I do. People are asking me who your artist is, and then I'll contact my artist. I say my artist is gonna contact you. I say charge him triple what you're charging me. This is your bonus from me. And I let them know. I say that's what they charge. What do you want me to tell you? Pay 'em. Right?
They're no longer cheap then.
Cheap for him.
Right, exactly. Whose fault is that? Mark, you got anything for the question?
Not really.
Yeah, okay. I know for myself, money is important because I'm paying all my creators, so I have to make money. So whatever I make goes right back in. I take nothing for myself. I got a day job. That's what that whole thing is for. But it's like I got to make money because I got to pay these people. Just like Deandre, you got to make money. It has to go back into the project. So fortunately enough, I've been, made enough so far that I've done, my 8 Kickstarters last year. I managed to keep just barely ahead of the line. So I keep kicking that can just a little bit further down the road.
All right, see, you're inspired some inspiration from me. So, breaking even. I think I mentioned this on one of the other shows. Breaking even for an independent creator is an amazing task. So it's not about the money. Just making zero is great and awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
I made zero this year. Yeah, you can have like a party and high fives.
Yep. And then look, see, I'm even more insane. So if I do make something, I find another artist and I give them work. It's just like, I got an extra $1,000. What am I supposed to do with this? Am I supposed to do something good for myself? No. I find another artist here. That's for you. Go draw that. There's a script for you. Hurry up. So yeah, that's my life. Mark, what do you got?
So, actually, I'm gonna combine 2 comments from what we just had. John said something, and Ryan said something. So, the object of a conglomerate, of a business structure, is to keep the story going. Most TV shows, that's what your job is, to make sure everybody's coming back week after week after week after week after week. But as independent guys, the idea is to have a beginning, middle, and end. Do you think which is the best for you to do? At what point should you be like, I just want to keep it going, or should I always have an end in mind?
Okay. John, you're up.
I think you should always have an end in mind. I think a story, even if you do a 5-act structure, you still need to have an end that you're working towards, because you can draw this thing out forever, and then it just sort of just becomes stale. Now that doesn't mean you can't, as a creator, have offshoots of your story. You can create a story, and then those characters can do something more in another story. But your main objective, I think, is to tell a very compelling story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now that could be 30. It could be 30 issues. It could be 3 issues. It could be 2 books. It could be 50 books. But there should be a clear vision, in my opinion, of an end in mind that you're working towards to give a satisfying ending to your readers.
Cool. Mr. Felix, how do you feel?
I feel that you should, as far as I missed one part of the question, but as writing, I think you need to know the ending before you know the beginning, and you kind of work your way backwards.
But for major industries, for let's say soap operas, their job is to keep it going.
That's true. But keeping it going is a curse to me, because then I feel like I'm caught in an endless loop. Like, when is this going to end? Like, I've been working on A World Without Superheroes for 22 years, maybe more than that. I think 28 years, because I started it. The first issue I was working on was when I was in college in '93. So, and I just have 12 issues that have never seen the light of day. You know what I mean? It's just like, and it continues to go. Like during the pandemic, I wrote 3 new issues. And I was like, well, this is 3 issues on top of the issues that I haven't printed. And then it's like, but yeah, you do have to keep, what's going to come out, who knows? But I mean, again, it's old for me, but nobody knows. When they see it, it's a brand new book, so it doesn't matter. That's the beauty of comics. It's not like I'm making updates, like, you know, like the Image Comics is like, this book's coming out next month, and then 2-3 years later it gets released. It's like I don't make that mistake to like forecast the book, you know, before it's done, you know. So what was the other part of the question? I forgot. What was that?
Well, that was the thing. Should you have something that's ongoing, or should you have something that's beginning, middle, end? Because ongoing is the job, is to keep the money going, is to keep the story going, is to keep things going forever and ever and ever, as opposed to having a story beginning, middle, end. That was the question.
A friend of mine says I should have just did one book and just kept it, like you guys are saying, keep it going. But my brain doesn't work that way. Most of my stories, I have to admit, I cheat. I mean, most of my stories come out of these obscure dreams that I have. And some of them, the really good ones, I forget minutes after waking up, which really gets me angry. But the ones that stay stuck in my mind are these wacky ones that probably aren't very good. But they're wacky enough that like, this is different. Nothing is out there. Like Brother Lone Star, Black Cowboys. I was like, there's no comic books about Black Cowboys. There's no comic books about Black Rodeo Cowboys. And I'm going to do it. And that all came from a dream of walking into a comic book store in 149th, which doesn't exist, in Lincoln Hospital. Doesn't exist. But there was a comic book store, and everything I saw was Brother Lone Star, cards, trading cards, toys, babies. And I was like, and there was like a box of dollar books, and everything was Brother Lone Star. I was like, who is this character? I've never heard of this character. And then when I realized in the dream, this is a dream. Let me write this down. Let me take some mental notes. And then when I woke up, I just literally grabbed a sketchbook, sketched it out. And then 5 years later, I put the book out, you know, and I'm actually on issue 2 and 3 now. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes that's how I get my ideas. They're literally these random blahs that come out of my brain. So keeping the story going, it's only if the dream tells me to, you know?
All right, cool. Deandre, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm similar to Ray in a lot of respects, both as a reader and as a creator. I can't be one of those people. I never understood what those people either that have to pick up every issue of X-Men that comes out for like 9 years in a row. Like I just can't. My brain, I get bored with it. I want to move on to something next. So when I wanted to do my own book, I knew it was going to be pretty finite. Like Thunder Guard's going to be a 9-page series. I might do a follow-up to it. That'll be not 9 pages, 9 issues. I might do a follow-up to it. That's another 6 to 9er, and then I'll probably never ever touch it again. Story's done at that point in time. And it's also different with like different mediums and things like that. Like say if you're working in animation, the point is to keep it going and sell toys and, you know, keep people coming back and investing. You have to have a very different MO than you have with comics. I think with me, it becomes much more about telling the story completely rather than telling it continually. I never want to Todd McFarlane this thing and be locked into, you know, working with the same property for until I die. Pretty much, that's not in the cards for me, not at all. Not as a publisher either. We'll have one book coming up that's going to be kind of an ongoing thing. But even I told the writer on that one, I'm like, listen, you gotta be cool with breaking this thing down to art. I'll give you 6 issues blocks that you can do until it picks up in the next season, whatever you want to call it in that regard. But you know, it's not going to be a perpetuity sort of situation.
All right, cool. Ryan, what do you got? How do you feel about it?
Okay, so my short answer is going to be both. But my one answer is going to be like I'm more geared towards the having an end. For one reason is like I like to know how far along I'm working on something. I'm inspired by doing new stuff. So like, you know, if I'm only ever going to draw like one thing, it's going to get boring. I'm not going to challenge myself as much. by working like with doing like anthologies and different things like that. Like I've been challenged by different. Getting to work with other people is awesome too. Like if I was only doing one thing, like I wouldn't get to work with other creators, which is probably one of the best things. But they challenge me by doing different things. Different writers create scripts in different ways, which challenges me in unique ways, which is always super cool. And then even just in like when you're working, if you're working on one book, like if say it's 3 issues, even if you're on issue 1, you know, you start out, you got that fire going, you're like, all right, here I go, I'm in this new thing. By the time you get to the middle, you hit that slug. You know, it kind of slows down until you get close to the end. And when you're getting closer to the end, you get fired back up. You're like, yeah, I'm almost done with this one. I can't wait. This is so cool. And I could just imagine, like, if I did the same thing forever and tried to keep it as an ongoing, like it would really burn itself out. It would burn me out. Like I wouldn't feel quite as motivated. You know, as an artist, I'm also trying to do different styles. I'm trying to like experiment with different working techniques. And like when you're doing like a series, like it's really jarring, like when they try to change stuff up. So like you have to kind of stay consistent within the series. So I mean, to me, that's one of the good reasons of having a beginning, middle, end, and like, you know, knowing your destination, knowing where you're going, knowing how close you are to getting that goal. And then at the same time, like I actually do kind of have this ongoing thing. I do like colors for like a short story backup for the Fried Comic stuff, which is super awesome because it could go on literally forever. Like they write the most basically batshit insane stories, and they're so cool. And like I'm hoping that eventually they collect all the short stories into like hardcover collections or something like that. Like, and I'm just doing the colors, so it's like a lot of fun. So like, you know, I like having something that's like pretty consistent, but it's neat because it's always different. And I'm also only doing the colors, so like I get to do like finish up other books, like, you know, beginning, middle, end, and, you know, push myself.
All right, cool. John, did you have a go at this question? I don't think you did you?
Yeah, I was the first.
He was first.
You're the first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking way more, and that threw me off. I know for myself, I prefer endings. I like to work towards an end. And my only advice to everyone is don't do what I did. Don't start in the middle and then work out towards the 2 ends. It will drive you nuts.
It worked for Star Wars.
Look at how
it worked in the sense that they have $1 bazillion.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But yeah, but they would have had that anyway. I mean, really, you know.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Lucas was already was it $4 billion up when he sold it. So that was good.
Remember that episode 1 was actually supposed to come out in 1988, according to Starlog, and then he delayed it and kept delaying it.
Right.
And then when we finally got the movie, we're like, "What the hell was this?"
Well, but that goes to the question we had earlier. Is George Lucas did his vision of what he wanted the story to be. He didn't follow what the fans thought was going to be the story. He did exactly the vision that he wanted to have, and he introduced Jar Jar Binks to the world, and we're all better because of it.
That's right. That's right.
And what's funny is that if episode 1 was more well received, he would have never sold it to Disney, because you think he's a filmmaker and he's like, all right, I have this one idea, I'm gonna do other stuff, but everybody's like, where's Star Wars? Like, all right, fine, I'll make a Star Wars. And then everybody's like, well, that sucked. Like, well, hey, you wanted me to make the Star Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we didn't want minstrel Jar Jar, you know.
right.
We didn't have to bring back minstralism, you know.
If you talk to some people who were kids and were introduced to Jar Jar as they were children, they actually love Jar Jar.
That's true.
I've met some of those people. You're just like, oh, I'm so sad for you. But they do exist. Though. I've met a couple of them. It's kind of funny. I mean, God bless them. You know, it's nostalgia, right? You know, we all, you know. You watch Space Ghost now, and you kind of like, I kind of remember this being better back in the day.
It always bothered me that he only had 6 buttons, but he had like a bazillion powers.
It's the combinations, man. It's the combinations.
Right.
Yeah, they're context sensitive, like PlayStation. Double tap in, it does something.
Did you guys ever see that YouTube video that talked about the script that Jar Jar was supposed to be the Phantom Menace, but they changed?
I heard about that.
He was symbiotic with Palpatine because everyone on that planet was symbiotic to each other. The underworld people with the so he was the counterpart of Palpatine, and he was actually supposed to be the real Phantom Menace, and that was supposed to be revealed in the second movie. But he had such a negative reception in the first movie, people begged him to change it. But he was supposed to be the actual Sith Lord.
Listen, everybody knocks those movies, but I got to be honest with you. I watch them maybe every other year. I watch them and fast forward because they're pretty good. You watch all 3 movies, fast forward, about 90 minutes, you get through the whole thing, and it's actually a pretty decent movie at that rate. But the thing that I really enjoy is the design of all those films because they're beautiful. You look at just the design work; those spaceships are incredible, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why the new movies fall so flat is because the design work, they're trying to stick to the original aesthetic to the first 3 movies, right? The 77 and Empire and those movies, and they're not trying to do anything new because that's what he did with that second batch of movies. He made you can see it was like a different world, and I don't know, it's one of those things. I like it.
We could talk Star Wars all night, I'm sure, though.
Oh yeah.
I love how Infinity War ripped off the whole ending of Episode 1. It's like with the force fields and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what else are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right?
That high school that looks like the Millennium Falcon is like actually right near where we live.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
I didn't know that was a thing until just now.
If you haven't seen the Google Earth of Parkland High School, it's the Millennium Falcon.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah.
That architect was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get it down now."
He probably did it on purpose.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it got built.
Nice.
I think the movie Fanboys was better than Episode 1.
Oh wow. No. All right.
That movie was horrible.
Exactly. That's my point.
I
It
know.
was still better than Episode 1.
All right. Let's keep it moving,
Pod
guys.
racing. I didn't care about anything else.
The pod racing, yeah. Listen, I just wanted to see the kid explode.
Spoiler.
I think that ruined a lot of actors' careers, that movie.
Yeah.
Could be worse than the Super Mario movie. None of those people acted again.
Watch it again. You're going to like it. The nostalgia factor.
All right, guys. Enough about Star Wars. Check this out. Here's this question. What is the biggest mistake you've made in comics that helped you improve as a creator and as a business person?
Ooh.
All right. So I think we're up to Ray.
Oh, shoot. Well, my CPA 10 years ago told me, actually 12 years ago now, says, you've invested $100,000 in this hobby of yours. And you're not really making any profit. This is not really a business, but you're filed as a business. And now 12 years later, I'm like, I could add like 2 houses. Wasn't so creative. But seriously, I think you can't follow trends. I mean, trends is quick to make money, but if you want to do a project that lasts long, I think you just have to stick to what. Sometimes you have to ignore what's popular sometimes and just stick to what you're doing and try not to get influenced by other things. That's the hardest part for me. But I've learned, like in a meditation type state, that if you ignore a lot of other stuff, eventually what you're writing will eventually become popular. like nobody, like Carmen Infantino, Danny
Fingeroff?
And no, not Danny Fingeroff, Dennis O'Neil, used to make criticisms about my adult styled comic books that I would script and draw. And there was one reason that I did that is because I got the sense that they were fishing for ideas. So I was like, I want to just write porn from now on. I'm just not gonna. They're not gonna steal this, but and I feel like putting those adult themes in those comic books, my early books in the first 10 years of doing this, now it seems like everyone's doing it now. So I was like, hey, it's time to reprint those books because now you have the Teen Titans are gay, Robin's gay, Superboy is gay, and I was doing stuff like that over 20 years ago. So it's like, hey, maybe it's time. It wasn't popular then. Now it's popular. Maybe now I have an audience. Like a writer told me once, your audience isn't born yet. So now my audience is born. So now it's time to put those books out.
All right, cool. So Deandre, what do you got? So what was your biggest mistake and your biggest takeaway?
Well, I'm still pretty new to this whole industry, but my biggest mistake is the same mistake that I make in every venture that I do. And it is that I'm a man who is driven by vision and I'm highly impatient. So rather than pay my dues and take my steps, when I started doing publishing and making comics, I could have did the normal thing and, just stuck to doing my comic or maybe just like a couple things. But I was like, oh, but, I have a friend that's doing this and I want to make that. And, what if I develop a submission by other people? And I'm going to take this. I just start snowballing everything together because I can see it in my mind so clearly. But the flesh is weak and it cannot keep up with the workload sometimes. So right now I'm trying to do my own book. I'm trying to be a editor-in-chief and a publisher and a boss of a whole team of people. And I'm also doing a anthology where I'm the artist on another story. So my cup runneth over with everything. But at the same time, it's like that motivates me. Like I get my juice from that, like knowing that I have so much to do. Yes, sometimes the anxiety of it all gets to me, but at the same time, it's like, thank God I did this, because if I was just still here pushing buttons and doing my day job and the world is still in the condition that it is, I would probably blow my brains out some time ago and been over with this. So it's like it's hectic and it's stressful, but at the same time, I perform under pressure, and I think I keep doing things this way because it's the only way that I know I gotta go big or go home. And if I have success for it, I know sort of where my level is and where my cap is, and now not to get myself into too much trouble. But probably initially, I would have dialed it back a little bit and let myself get into the pace of things a lot more instead of just laying down the gauntlet for myself immediately and trying to do it that way.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Ryan, what do you got? What was your biggest mistake and your biggest takeaway?
So my biggest mistake is sometimes I try to do too many things at once and thinking I can get them all done like in a timely manner, and it never really works like that. If you focus down on one thing and just finish it until it's complete, like it goes so much quicker. So I've had to learn and sadly relearn to say no to stuff. That's like the hardest thing. You get such cool opportunities that come up sometimes, and I would love to do all the things, but saying no is tough. But it really does benefit. It helps the quality of the work you're putting out afterwards. And it's nice to actually finish things.
This is true.
That's a good point too. I had to pass up on like two very cool projects that were very popular Kickstarters that I could have been associated with, just because I knew at that point. Again, another reason I kicked myself because I bit off a little bit too much initially, and if I would have reserved myself, I would have been able to take part in those things, which probably could have rose my star a little bit quicker having stuff out. But yeah. That's hard because I can't say no to stuff, and then when something cool comes by, you gotta refuse it. It can kill you a little bit.
Gotcha. So, Ryan, just to add on to that, so without mentioning any names or any projects, right now, of those things that you passed up, was there one that you're just like constantly beating yourself over the head with?
Not yet. It's not like if there's something that has come up that was ungodly awesome. I usually go talk to people. I almost passed up this opportunity. Somebody asked me to do a color on oh my God, what is the inker's name? He used to ink Jack Kirby, and now it's gonna bug me because I can't remember. No, he did Gorgo. It was like Gorgo Attacks, and I wasn't gonna do it at first, and I talked to my friend, and he's like, "Dude, you realize that he inked Jack Kirby, and like if you do this, I'm never gonna let it down." So I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And like
Joe Sinat?
Cool opportunity. I'm sorry, what?
Joe Sinat?
That's it, Joe Sinat. So like
Yeah.
I got to color an original Joe Sinat artwork that was only ever colored in marker by the guy that does the school, Kubert.
Yeah, Joe Kubert.
Yeah, so he colored it in marker, but it wasn't like really suitable for printing. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I almost passed
years ago.
Yeah, I almost passed that up. And if I did, I would have regretted the hell out of that.
That's like a Will Smith giving up the Matrix moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, John, what have you, I guess, been like? What's your
biggest mistake and biggest takeaway?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar, I guess, to Ryan in that early on I had a lot of difficulty saying no, thinking that the only way to be successful is to do all the things, and but the takeaway is that you don't. I mean, everybody gets to judge where their success is, and you have to determine what that looks like for you. Some people think it's making a ton of money. I just like having my name on a book on a shelf. Really, that's what I love. I love being able to see. I know it sounds a little arrogant, but really, I love to see my name in print in a book. That is reward enough for me, and that's the biggest takeaway in all of it is that, because I didn't say no to a lot of things, I've been in a lot of things. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. That has its benefits.
Yes.
So it's the way I ask myself if I should say yes or no to something is I say, will you regret it more if I say no?
Right. Yeah.
And if you say yes to that, then you do it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, Mark.
Yes.
What was your biggest mistake and what was your biggest take?
Okay, this is actually right up my alley because I made a whole lot of mistakes. But I would think my biggest mistake is thinking that everybody else thinks like I do. So I'm like, yeah, if I do this, then this will happen, and this will happen, and then it doesn't happen. I'm like, well, what the hell? Because my intended response of what other people did was nothing like I envisioned. So I guess don't think like everybody else was my biggest mistake. I was thinking too much like myself. And my biggest takeaway is how important networking is, building relationships, and building a team of people who you can rely on. So I find that I can only do certain things. As you know very well, JD, how bad I am with technology and computers. So instead of, because people's like, oh, no, you should learn how to do everything. And that's not what you should do. You should get a team of people who know how to do a specific task that you're unable to do. And therefore, the two of you can work together and build yourself up together.
Yeah, I know this because I never see your face.
He's a mystery.
I have a face for radio.
No, he's the Charlie of our Charlie's Angels here.
I was just waiting for him to say, so my biggest mistake was I started doing this podcast.
No, that was me. No, but actually, I think my biggest mistake was probably early on when I first started. I was very young, I was like 17, 18 years old. And the people I was working with, my wife being one of them, we produced annuals for about 3 or 4 years. So every year we would come out with one book, it'd be issue 1, and then the following year it'd be issue 2, and the following year it should be 3. And it was, I think that was perhaps, but my takeaway was that I learned that you have to put these things out on time if it's going to be a real business. You have to do things, a little bit more professionally. But we were kids, so live and learn.
So I've shared the story many a time before, and I will tell you this story. I was this close to working for Marvel. I had a friend of mine who was an anchor for the company, Peter Palmiotti, and he came to me one day. It's Jimmy Palmiotti's brother. He came to me one day. He was working for Marvel. He goes, "Hey, let's see if we can get something to an editor, and we can make a book, and let's make it happen." So you're a writer. I get a penciler. We'll put the sample pages together. We'll have the script. We'll go to editor because editors like teams. So if you come in as a team of a project, you have a better chance of getting the work. So I took, I'm going to say, a good 2 to 3 months just figuring out what the story could be. Once I did that, I took another month to write down the full idea, and then I wrote a full script, 22 pages of the first issue. I got the penciler to draw the first 6 pages. Peter inked it, and it was a continuation of What If, the second series that they had. What if the Secret Wars, if the people had stayed on the Beyond the World? And in that comic, in the What If, they had kids, and the kids made it back to Earth, and Earth was all different because those heroes never came back. So my idea was to pick up from that. So I read that book, backwards and forwards. I made up, characters, and I based on that 22 pages, I made a whole world and expanded everything. We took it to the editor, and he was like, "Well, we're coming on upon the 25th anniversary of the Secret Wars, so we're kind of doing something else. What else do you got?" And I had nothing. And that's a lesson right there. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have a backup.
Nice. Okay. No, that's yeah. Wow, that's rough, man. That's rough. So you spent 8 months developing this idea, and then he was like, "Nah."
Yeah. It wasn't even 10 seconds.
Wow. You don't mind me asking, which editor was it?
I don't know. That was Pete's. That was all Pete. So you have to ask him.
Oh, gotcha. It went through to Pete. Cool. All right. Well, you're up, Mr. Mark. What you got?
So let's see. What would be a good question for the panel? Oh, and since we're talking about mistakes and missed opportunities, do you find as independent creators that you're selling yourself more than your project? I bring this up because it immediately thought about when I go to conventions, and I think we mentioned this in a different earlier show, JD, how you can always tell who's the first timers at any given convention based on their table. And we always talk about how part of being an independent person is selling themselves. So do you guys think that you selling yourself more or the project more is what you should do?
All right, cool. I think we're back at Deandre. Or did you answer?
Yes, we are. We're back at Deandre.
Yeah, you actually skipped me on the mistake question, but that's all right.
Did I? No. Whoa. Stop. I thought I asked. Wait a second. Hold on now. Ray, I gotta hear this. What was your biggest mistake?
I'll keep it short so we can move on to the next. I made a lot of mistakes, but these are my big 3 whoppers. Number 1, in 1993, turning down Will Eisner to take his class. Yeah. Telling him no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. Number 2, meeting Spike Lee at a payphone, and then talking him up about hiring me as a storyboard artist. He gives me his phone number and address to mail him stuff to his shop, and then I never followed through on it. That's a big one. That was also in the 90s. And then number 3 was now I forgot. But it was also but it was again, they all get jumbled. But the third one was basically getting an opportunity. When I was a messenger, I used to go to Marvel I used to go to Marvel every day to pick up the color separations because I worked at Jelly Bean back in the day. They were on Park Avenue, so I used to pick up the color separations for the issues, and then bring it to the print shop so they can do the separations. And I always talked about how I was an artist. The secretary talking her up, and she was like, "Oh, you should talk to some of the editors in the pit, and you bring your portfolio." And I never took her up on that opportunity. So, but there's a million more. But go ahead. That's it.
So what? Let me guess. Your big takeaway is follow up.
Follow through. Don't be a flaky artist.
Gotcha. All right. So back to Deandre. It's all you, sir.
Yeah, so going back to the question, man, and I think it's for sure, and it's something that I learned way back in the days when I used to work in marketing. And one person that trained me always said, don't worry about what you're doing, because what I was assigned to and what I was trying to push very week to week, you're not selling the product, you're selling yourself. So people have to buy into you first before they come to it. And we see things like that in the industry. And I think sometimes it gets lost a little bit when we think about comics and things like that, because I recall I was on the show one time and we were discussing about creators and everything like that. And I said, there's comics aren't big, creators are big. If there's a Batman book coming out and Joe Schmo and Lunchbox Gary Valentine were the writer and artist team on it.
I love Lunchbox Gary Valentine.
No one would give a flying fuck. Like that's just how it is. But like you come out and it's like, it's a superstar like tandem, it's Jim Lee and it's Grant Morrison or something that gets people going. So people have bought into them as creators and as personalities. And when you get going and you're trying to start up and you don't have IPs that people know, books that people don't know about, concepts that might be a little bit wonky and out there and different, it becomes really about marketing yourself and putting yourself out there. And I think that's really daunting for a lot of creators. And I know it's something that even my team internally struggles with. Sometimes they're just not comfortable at the level, like putting themselves out there. So I get to be a little bit more of a face and I get to come out and do these things. And I'm talking to the radio shows and I'm holding all the business discussions and everything like that, but taking over that role, and that's something that I do proudly. But it was also one of those things that I didn't anticipate was going to be as much of a thing when I was initially doing it. I'm just like, I'm going to make comic books and it's going to be cool. But then you're like, oh wait, I have to be, I got to be a guy, and then you got to start preparing yourself for it really quick. So it's something that I'm still getting accustomed to. I like to think that I'm growing and I'm developing in it much quicker, especially because I don't even have anything that's on shelves or that people can buy or anything else right now. But opportunities continue to come my way. That means that I'm at least doing a somewhat adequate job of selling myself and marketing myself a little bit more, and then letting the creator part follow after that. After I stick my foot in the door and keep it open.
All right, cool. Ryan, what do you got?
I think it's all about the person, especially like on Kickstarter and stuff. Like, I back projects, yeah, but like I'm backing the projects because I'm supporting specific creators.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's been super awesome. Like after backing somebody for like 5 years or something like that, seeing how the books come out and like how they've grown as a creator, it's been really awesome. And I like following their journey. And I'm hoping that people feel the same way like about me. So, I mean, like, I think if I'm on my next book, I'm hoping that people are coming to my next book because of me, not because it's just their thing or whatever.
All right, cool. John?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that. It's the same thing. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's about the creator. I'm the same way. I back people on Kickstarter because I dig the creator. Some of the stuff I don't even read. I back it because I like the creator and I want to support them. So I'm hoping that someday somebody does that with my stuff. Well, actually, I hope everybody reads my stuff. But
I thought you were going to say something that they don't read your stuff.
They'll just buy it. I'm sure if somebody came up to you and said, "I will buy 100,000 copies, but I'm never going to read it," and throw it in the trash, you'd be like, "Go right ahead."
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. You need it to put it under a table leg at your house. Go for it. As long
Great
as you
building
buy
materials.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Felix, what do you got?
Question again. I'm sorry.
Are you selling the project or are you selling the creator? Which is what you're doing?
Honestly, I would say both. whenever I sell books at shows, I always mention the creators, especially the ones that are like the big ticket items that I need to like make my money back. That they cost a lot. Like, hey, this guy is like worked on the book. He's like, he created such and such, especially like Trevor. I'm like, hey, this guy was the co-creator of Black Lightning. He worked on, the original Johnson. Who did, So I kind of talk him up, and then I guide him into what this book is about, and that's one of the things that I do. And then the work itself, people, so for some reason at conventions when they walk through Artist Alley, they don't make the connection like these people created the book. So I actually have to tell them sometimes. They just think that they're selling indie books, like we're just like a comic book vendor, So it's like, and I guess because I have a lot of different titles on the table, so that when I say, hey, I'm the artist, I'll sign it for you if you buy it. And then they're like, what? You wrote and drew all these? It's like, and that happens so often, from show to show. It doesn't matter what state you're in. People are just always surprised, and they're enamored by the fact that somebody created this. It's like with the Punchline Detective. I'm always saying like, oh, this is my pandemic book. This is what I did during the shutdown, and they're like, "Oh, really? I didn't do shit during the shutdown. I just binge watched on TV. I was watching Netflix, and you made something creative. I'm gonna buy this because you did this during the pandemic." So you always have to find an angle, But again, it's just like you just got to be like that, like Jack Lemmon and Glenn Ross. You just got to be on the spot, and be good with the storytelling. That's you're telling a story, you're selling them. People don't know what they want, so they just roam aimlessly until they see something that attracts them. And my stuff is not going to attract them, so I have to sell them like, hey, you might want this. Take a look. It's like fishing, right? You like fishing. You throw your rod out there, and you're literally reeling in people. Like I'm like saying, hey, you. Have you ever heard of Bronx Heroes? And they're like, what the hell? No.
How could you not? There's a giant sign. I'm standing right behind it. What are you, blind?
Right. Or another one is when I get made fun of. I say, do you know who the greatest hero Black Power is? Have you ever heard of Black Power? And they're like, what? So, I mean, those are some of the catchphrases that I use to attract people to my books, and it works. So I sound like a record. Some people know them by heart. So I get teased at the convention by the indie people. It's like
Damn, I just say hi to people.
Yeah. Like they'll start mocking me out, like as the show goes on, they see me making money and they're there like just drawing their sketches. It's like, hey, do you know who Bronx is?
Nice. All right, hold on. Let me put up a couple of days. Daphne puts in, one of my regrets is negotiating a cover for Tall Tales from George Torres for $400 and never following up to get it.
That hurts. That hurts.
Nice. Chest pains.
Yeah. But honestly, my biggest regret is thinking I had all the time in the world to do these issues, and now I'm trying to cram 5 years worth of comics into 2.
Yeah, I have to get her Kickstarter because I know she's doing the adult book stuff. I wanted to see what she's.
Oh yeah.
I forgot you said that. I actually got the adult stuff. I want to get it.
I do want to.
He was holding out until that.
Yeah. I love her art style. She has a really great art style.
Says I love the porns. Give me more.
She's just printing money now.
Yeah. Well, you would think, man. She has to be out there hustling. You have no idea.
You got to pay for all the comics you're making.
Yeah. Exactly. Nita says you can do it, Lage.
So there you go.
Yeah. So I mean, for myself, yeah. Mark, repeat the question one more time. It's your question.
Selling yourself or selling the product?
Right. For myself, I feel I sell myself, right? But if they sit down and read the product, they'll come back for more. Okay. So I think that's the important part, that you put out a product that's strong enough that will be able to bring people back. Talking about gimmicks, when I was at shows, what I would do is I would produce a digest-sized book and I would sell it for $1, right? And my gimmick was, so come here, You want to buy a book for $1? I'll sell you a book for $1, and I'll give you a money back guarantee on it. You don't like the book, bring it back. I'll give you back your $1. No problem. Okay. And invariably, I only ever had one person take me up on it. He returned the book, right? But they did it so they'd have enough. It was a kid, so he'd have enough money to buy the other books.
Ah.
Did you give it back to him in like rows of pennies? Like, here's your book is back in pennies.
No, he was handing me more money. So I was just like, yeah, no problem. Here, it's okay.
There was
I
this
had a
one
woman
guy
throw a
at
book in my face.
there was this one guy at New York Comic Con, and as I mentioned before, I go up and down Artist Alley and try to talk to as many indie creators and whatnot. And he had a sign: "If you don't like my book, you can punch me in the face." I was like, I must talk to this guy. I bought the book, and it was a really good book. I'm like, there you go. He's like, and I said, has this ever happened? He goes, no. So far, I've been lucky enough that everybody who's bought my book loved it enough and didn't come back to punch me in the face.
And this was in New York?
Yeah, this was New York Comic Con. His picture's up on our Facebook page somewhere in the folder.
See, if it was in New Jersey, he'd get punched in the face just because that's what they do in New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah, don't mess with the Devils fans, right?
That's right. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they'd buy the book just to punch him in the face.
Exactly.
I had a woman throw my book in my face, and she says, "You're not keeping it true to the game." I never forgot that.
What does that even mean?
I'm really hoping you put that as a poll quote on the back of future.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go, guys. Where do you see yourselves 1 year from now, creatively and financially? Meaning, how did you do financially as far as your creations, not like your day job and all that jazz. I think we were up to Ryan.
I see myself on Talking Indie Comics with JD Calderon next year at this time. I'd be like Ray. 1 year from now.
I mean, that's what we're going to be due, right? Because we all missed talking to him for since February.
Yeah.
So in a year from now, I want to be finishing up my first issue, or my first series, and be bringing it to Kickstarter with a full hardcover with some collected stories. I'm super inspired by the way they did Skull Kickers. And if you've read those hardcovers, I really liked how they had backup stories in the back of the book that was just random stuff that really had nothing to do with the book, but it was kind of enriching the universe. So that's what I want to be doing. I want to be running my Kickstarter next year, having done a bunch of stories with some cool creators that I get to commission this time, and I'm really looking forward to that. And financially, I'm going to be having that Disney money that they were throwing at me. I think that's
Nice. John, what do you got?
A year from now, it's gonna. I hope to have two things going on. I'd like to be doing a collected version of Rancidville, and I have another anthology planned, which I haven't really talked much about yet. But I'd like to be doing that. Financially, I just like to stay above water. The last book, the anthology that I did, broke even. It made money, but it broke me even financially over all the other books that I've done so far. So I'm hoping that that I can just stay above board.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, you see the reason why the anthology did maybe brought you up to that level was just because it was an anthology, a lot more people pushing it, or?
Yeah, dude. If you want to really level up, an anthology is the way. I mean, it was a five figure book. I had a bunch of creators in it, which really helped push. I had some creators who didn't push as hard, but I had some big people in it, and I think it was just a great. It filled a void. It's a fractured fairy tale anthology, so it has an audience that I don't normally have, so and I have a second volume of that planned, which will be nice. Yeah, you know, my first Kickstarter made money, but I spent way more money than it made. Because it was my first book, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. And my second book, I still didn't know what I was doing, but I knew more than I did the first time. And then and so then the third, you know, the anthology, I had a good idea of what I was doing more than the first two books. So you know, it made up for the losses of the other two. You know, so I mean, I'd love to have the Disney money, but I don't think Disney's knocking on the door right now.
Yeah, they're packing their truck up to my house. Sorry.
Especially because they're probably watching this and they saw that I said they don't give a shit. So, you know, they're probably, well, we're done with this guy. He was on our list and crossed the Edingfield guy off.
That was a missed opportunity right there.
Exactly. So yeah, so if you guys ever want to, you know, if you ever want to do something big, I mean, the anthology is the way. I mean, it really crushed it.
No, that's cool. All right, nice. I don't know. I hear I don't know. I hear anthology. And I'm like, you know, it's like herding. I would imagine it was like herding cats, right?
It was like herding cats. Absolutely, it was. If you're not a taskmaster, it is painful. I mean, you know, the deadlines and artists and, you know, and just creative teams. You know, I had 19 creative teams, 34 different creators, 19 creative teams, all converging at one point. You know, yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot of moving parts. And then I got it to the printer, and I'm like, I'm finished, and then that was just the beginning. You know? So yeah, but
there's always that one person where it's like the deadline's tomorrow, and then they turn in their script that day.
No, dude, I had one guy, I had one creator who was just hard. It's the only way to say it was just hard. So. But it all worked out.
That's good. Did you ever have that team where it was like, listen, when I get the script, I'll start, and then you go to the writer, and the guy says, listen, I delivered the script last week. What's that guy talking about? Did you get that?
No, I had a creator. I kid you not. I had a creator who wouldn't share his script with me at first because he was afraid that it would get leaked, and it was such a great idea, and he didn't want it stolen.
Wow.
I kid you not. It's like, I am the editor. I am the publisher. I need to know what you're writing. Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to end up with a Ray Felix script where it's just porn.
You know, yeah. I mean, there is a place for that. It wasn't in the fairy tale book that I was doing for kids. But yeah, there is it.
So right here, I think this is a good opportunity for anybody listening that wants to start their own anthology. They could just have an anthology submission horror stories anthology. And have everybody here start.
Exactly. Well, the benefit of doing the anthology was it exposed me to a whole different skill set that I didn't know I needed. You know, I learned a bunch of stuff, not just with running a project with other people, but, you know, running a project with other creators who sometimes aren't people. Yeah, it really was a good and a good point, because, you know, it was my first anthology. I had already done 2 of my own books. I'd been in like 6 other anthologies. I'd done a bunch of other stories with other people, and so I was really green on how to run that anthology, and I learned what I didn't want to do in the next anthology, which was, you know, not have a guy who won't share his story with you. You know, you don't want that in your next anthology.
All right. Ray, what do you got?
Oh, too much. I'm trying to make deadlines. I'm in the middle of a story with issue 2 of Nemesis Dark Daughter of Night with Gary Cohn. He's writing it. I'm drawing it. In the middle of issues 5 and 6, I'm coloring the one with Black Power with Trevor Von Eden. Then I got to work on coloring Chris Duckett's Roach and my Roach story that we did for Bronx Heroes #4, which has been taking a long time. Like it's been like almost 7 years since the last issue of Bronx Heroes. Actually, less than that. About 4 years. 4 years. And a Biden book. I'm working on a Biden book. We got someone who is a publisher. Hold on a second. Can you go to the other room? So I'm working as a sequel to the Trumpland book.
We appreciate you.
That's my mom.
She needs to know we appreciate her.
She's visiting from Florida. So it's like, so the sequel to my Trumpland book, we're going to do a book on the Biden, the tail end of Trump's catastrophe of his presidency and Biden. So, and it's not going to be a pro-Biden book per se. I was like, well, if you took shots at, hello,
This is coming to you live on tape.
Invite her over. Come on, get in the camera. We can all.
No, don't come closer. I'm on.
Poor Bob.
So, we made fun of Trump. So I was like, I'm going to make fun of Biden. Why not? And it's going to be just like the Trump book. It's going to be like, I'm just basically going to try to make fun of everybody, so like CNN and all this other stuff and try to, and make it appeal to all audiences. So I think that's the goal. So we got a full plate of stuff, going on. You want to sell to those Reds too, because ironically, in California, I've sold more Trumpland books, which is an anti-Trump book. It says it like flat out. We don't pull any punches. I sold more copies to pro-Trump supporters than to liberals, because the liberals are all saying, I don't want anything of that man in my house. I don't want to own it. I don't want to read it. He's like bad juju. I was like, I get it, but it's like, it's funny. I look at it like Mad Magazine, like you got to take the Mad Magazine approach where you just make fun of everything, and I think that we've become a tribal collective in America. You're either red or you're blue, or it's like it's really like gangland. It's not Bloods and Crips, it's Democrats and Republicans. And people are getting shot and killed over this. Like it's becoming like it's getting heated, So it's like, so we need to bring some humor into it and say, hey, it's just politics. They really don't care about you, and I feel that's my mission, is to convey to people that these people have been running the country since segregation. A lot of these people have been in power, and even some before segregation, they're still controlling the country, and they really just don't give a shit about you. They really don't, It's like those are the Lucases that we really need to attack. Big changes on things, those politicians. So I don't know. That's it. That's 2023. That's what I'm going to do.
What do you got, Mark?
Okay, so realistically, taking my own advice from before, that people do not think like myself, I would say I would be on one more additional terrestrial radio station, because we're on one right now and 4 online. I want to go on a second terrestrial radio station between now and then. I'm actually emailing back and forth one person who seems interested. Also, I know for a fact that that book that I was telling you about is going to be happening. So I spoke to the publisher. He's going for the Indy Go-Go campaign. I think he said around June. Mm-hmm. So at very least, I'll have the one campaign finished. I personally want all 5 issues out, but it's up to the publisher. And we don't know how this one's going to go, but that's where I see it. So at very least, we'll have the 1 issue out of the 5. And I'll be on one more additional terrestrial radio station.
All right, gotcha. Cool. I guess for myself, I mean, I did 8 Kickstarters last year, so I want to at least manage
16?
that. Oh, Jesus, right? 60? Yeah, no. I'm gonna try for another 8, maybe 9. I don't know. It all depends. I mean,
are you willing to like sell your services to help other people with their Kickstarters
I don't even
as a consultant or something?
Here's the funniest thing. You don't even have to buy me. You just have to ask.
Okay.
I don't. It's true. When it comes down to this type of help, I mean, you just ask. I mean, whatever help I can give you, I'll give you.
He does so many Kickstarters, he can't even remember if it's his Kickstarter or not.
Exactly.
You can just slide it in there. You won't even know.
Yeah, I was like, here it is. JD just promote it. I'd be like, no problem. I'll just start promoting it. Yeah, it's one of those things. But hopefully, right now I'm working with 2 artists. So this is the financial part of it. I'm working with 2 artists now. I'm hoping to be working with a 3rd one. So next year. So that's what I'm looking forward to, because I think I've said it before. I am probably about 1,600 pages into Oswald, right? And it's taken me about 12 years to get there, right? I probably have another 1,600 pages to go, but I don't want to spend another 12 years doing it. I want to get it. I want to cut that time down, maybe another 6 years, 5-6 years. I want to get the whole thing out. I did write the ending, so to answer the other question, yes, endings are best.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So, Mark, you're
Hey, did I answer the question? I don't know.
Did you? No.
It might be my indica playing tricks.
You know what? No.
You skipped Deandre. It's all Ray's fault. It's all Ray's mom's fault. It's all Ray's mom's fault.
Don't blame Mom. Don't
I think
blame
she was when they
74, right?
So I'm sorry, Deandre. What do you got? I gotta hear this.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm planning on stuff for like 2024 already. I'm trying to be ahead of the curve as much as possible. But I mean, for sure, we got 3 books in production right now. I am looking to pivot a bit more into distribution. So, people who already have books made, getting them out there a little bit. I'm trying as best I can to catch people who are kind of on a similar level and like trying to ride the same wave. Like, hey, if we can do something that's mutually beneficial to us both and our projects are kind of aligned and our ethos is aligned, I'll open things up to let you come aboard and we can try to do something together and make sure that's cool. So hopefully we'll be maybe producing some books and publishing some books that were in maybe some foreign territories that are having trouble getting some traction in America, and I can be the sort of representative for that creator, that artist, and that story publishing under the Odyssey brand to get that going a little bit more. I want to do an anthology, but I know capital-wise, I'll probably be doing Thundergar issues 2 and 3 around this time next year. So I can't do that a lot, but I think I will pivot. I'm working on a sci-fi magazine idea, and I'm hopeful that could get some traction. We're probably going to go digital first and then see if there's enough interest in it to go ahead and publish it and get distributed more. Just because I know right now things are a little bit on the squeaky clean side. I want something a little bit harder, a little bit edgier to sort of expand the brand a little bit. When it comes to money, I have no expectation. So anything like that. I'm also an idiot of a publisher. Like, if somebody comes to me and is like, hey, I got this great idea, you should publish it. I'm like, okay, I like it. It's like, there's this artist that works for Marvel. I really want to get them. We should try to hire him. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I don't want to just be like bleeding money, but at the same time, if I see it as a potential get, and I'm relatively confident I can sell some comics, I'll stretch some budgets a little bit to make it work. But riding around in like a company Mercedes will probably not be in the future anytime soon.
All right, cool. Yeah, but Deandre, you have made the transition to independent comic book publisher. Good job.
Yes, that's
the insanity. The insanity is definitely there. Yes. Yes. Ray and I will. Send you a medal.
Yeah.
Send me a no prize.
You're just as nuts as us. All right, cool. Ray, Mark, you got one last question for the panel?
I do. So Deandre, Ryan, and John, just want to clarify: have you guys had a table at a convention? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So this question is for everybody on the panel: what is the worst thing or the best advice you can give to other people who are out there who want to be at tables at conventions?
Cool. I think we were up to Ryan.
I went first last time. I need time to
It's-
find my answer.
So John's next.
Okay. The best advice that I can give is engage people when they walk by your table. Don't have your head down drawing on a tablet. Don't be sitting. Be standing up. Be entertaining. Be engaged. Be friendly. Draw people to your table. Ryan and I tabled at a convention here in PA where across from us was an amazing artist, just incredible. His work was astounding, and he did not make one sale. His whole time he sat with his head down on a tablet, and people walked by, and Ryan and I, we were selling like nuts. And it's just that we short of jumping out and grabbing somebody, which, I wanted to do, Ryan said we shouldn't because, might be bad. Yeah, it's, that's the best thing to do is to be friendly, be open, be approachable, and be engaged with the people that are walking by.
Cool. Ray, what do you got?
I would say the same thing. Sorry about my little floodlight. Like, where were you in the night? I would say a similar thing. I don't do commissions at shows because exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've made less money doing commissions at a show than selling books. So I mean, I always sell the book. I always push the book. Very few shows. I don't even bring a drawing pad sometimes, just on purpose. The only time I bring a drawing pad if it's my first time doing a show that I've never been to before, and I'm like, okay, I think this is not going to be a money maker. Let me bring something just to bide my time. But I would say to somebody that's just starting out, don't do it unless you're like die hard about it. Don't. It's like my buddy Gary Cohn says, you're not going to get rich making comics. I mean, he created Blue Devil. I mean, he created Amethyst. And he's living off his retirement, as a teacher. He's not getting that. I mean, he gets like a little check here and there that he has to divide amongst all the creators, but it's nothing that's going to pay your bills or, and that's just a fact, unless you're like extremely lucky, like this gentleman who did the Shark Tank thing and got that deal from, I don't know if you guys heard about that, the whole Shark Tank deal that this.
I did not.
Yeah, there was this indie creator. I saw him at a few shows. He was on an episode of Shark Tank. Kevin Hart basically invested $500,000 into his company, and he was a newbie from what I understand because I've only seen him at 3 or 4 shows. Maybe he did more local shows, but in New York I've only seen him do a handful of shows. So that was like big news, like maybe like 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
I mean, it can happen. And I think that's the beauty of being an independent is that, like I've talked to guys that worked for Marvel DC for 20, 30 years, and they really don't have anything to show for it because they were just drawing other people's creations. I own all my IPs. I own my trademarks. And, and people come after me. I've had Marvel and DC come after me for stuff, and then now I'm going after them for stuff, with this punchline thing. But I mean, yeah, at least I could say, I didn't make $1 million, but I own everything, and I can license this out. And a professor told me once, the things you do in your 20s will pay off in your 40s, and the things you do in your 40s will pay off in your 60s. And that stuck to me as a young man, who was like just turning 20. I was like, and that makes sense because, like, what was it, like almost 20 years after I created World Without Superheroes, Marvel and DC came and said, hey, you stop doing that. Here's a cease and desist. We're going to sue you. But I stuck to my guns. I fought it, and I was vindicated. I was like, no, you're not suing me. I've had a copyright since 1993. What are you talking about?
Mhm.
So these are mine. These are mine. I own these. I mean, had I worked for DC 20 years ago, they would have had a lot better stories, and they wouldn't be in the pickle they're in now. If I was an editor for them or a writer for them. But I'm glad that I didn't get that job at Marvel or DC, because these are mine. I own them, and no one can take them away. And I can sell them or license them to Netflix or, anything. Any company that's willing to make a movie out there.
Mhm. Cool. Deandre, you're up.
Okay. I mean, I'll try to impart as much wisdom as I can, having only just recently did my first convention as a publisher. But it was
All right, so it was your very first time. So you sat down and you're like,
this
man,
year.
I should have done this, or next time I'll do this.
Well, I will say for this, I've at least gone to enough conventions to kind of know what the game plan was, and that's the first thing I could tell anyone is have a game plan. Understand the purpose of you being there, understand your audience, know your message, and know how to communicate it and what you want to do. So we did C2E2. I knew during this time, like I didn't have any books to push because we're brand new. Nobody knows about us, but I ended up turning that into a strength like this. And I told my team, like, we're going, but this is a brand awareness tour. This is getting out to people, tell them about Odyssey, tell them who we are. At that time, I also launched Thunderguard, so I at least had an active campaign, something like that, to talk about and to form the conversations, everything like that. We had art and T-shirts and things like that, and we're doing just kind of fun giveaways. But it's like, hey, this is just street team level stuff. We're doing freebies. We're not trying to make a bunch of money, anything like that. We're playing it loose, having some fun, engaging with people, doing all of that. And it can be tough because it basically was two conventions in one for us, because I was in small press to start with, and then we ended up. There's some things that happened during the campaign. I ended up at Artist Alley later on, and I saw that I had a harder time in Artist Alley than I had in small press, even though we're kind of like way off to the side. We weren't getting a lot of foot traffic. You know how conventions treat small press publishers. It's not great. But oddly enough, we were getting more engagement. I sold out of Odyssey t-shirts. Nobody even know who the hell Odyssey Comics is. And people bought all of my t-shirts because people were engaging. They were buying into Odyssey and buying into what we were talking up and doing, and wanted to show their support for what we're doing. So I was actually making money on the first convention, not enough to cover our expenses, but hey, it got us some pizza and some drinks and paid for parking and things like that. So that was cool. And
you got the deep dish pizza?
Yeah, no, God, no. I'm from Chicago, so I know real Chicagoans don't eat deep dish. We eat tavern style pizza. That's real, true Chicago pizza.
What
dishes for tourists.
What type of pizza?
Tavern style. It's round pizza cut into squares all across for sharing, party style. So,
Sicilian,
basically. Kind of like Sicilian style, yeah. And then when we were in Artist Alley, I noticed I had a hard time because Artist Alley becomes much more retail driven. You're trying to sell more books. You're trying to sell more prints. You're trying to do this. So the messaging and the engagement is a little bit different because people are walking around kind of looking for stuff to buy and things that are interesting. I mean, you don't have a table set up for that. Well, it becomes a little bit different. And then you have to switch up and re-engage. So I had to change the message. I had to change the engagement a little bit. And I was falling into that trend of like, oh, we're not getting anybody at the table. It starts getting to you after a while. You're tired. Everything's been like that. So I would definitely tell people, come in with a game plan, know what you're doing, know the audience you're speaking to. Different cities, the crowds are different. Some are more knowledgeable about comics than others. Some are just there to do cosplay and not really engage with tables that much and buy things, understand your expectation levels when you're going into it and do things accordingly. And if you're going to be at a big convention, if it becomes available, see what friends are going to be there to help you out. Thankfully, I was in a position where I could bring, everybody I was doing stuff with, not everyone, people are outside the country and stuff like that, but I was able to have people there with me and support, and we got to hang out together and things. And it just makes it so much more easier than it could be otherwise. So find every opportunity you can, have fun with it. And if you're doing that, at the very least, it's going to be a good time for you. And then people are going to see that too, and they're going to treat you a different kind of way, and hopefully get you a little bit more of a success and a little bit more money coming your way.
Was it this 2v2 but this December that you were at, or was it pre-pandemic?
Yes, it was this one. Pre-pandemic, I was there. That was like the last one that I did before everything the world went to crap. And then so I was there as a patron, and now I was able to come back as a publisher. And that was my commitment. Actually, during all this, I started Odyssey during the pandemic. So it was very cathartic for me to return as a publisher, having last been there as a patron. It was a cool moment for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Ryan, what do you got?
So first, I would say, like, if you haven't really done a show yet, don't go out to like San Diego Comic-Con and spend like all days there, like in the hotel and everything else, and your starts fall. And actually, Deandre was kind of saying something that I was going to say is like, I split my tables with John. We go and we do our shows together. I have plenty enough space to put out my books on my side. He has enough on his side, and the books that we've done together, we kind of put in the middle. So every show, no matter if I make money or not, like, it's a success to me because like I'm there, I'm hanging out with John, I'm having a good time, we're laughing, we're like talking about all the things we're going to work on, and we're planning ahead, and what are we going to do for this year? Like, I go to a show and I come back and I'm like completely energized, and it doesn't matter if it was a show that I made $20 at or if it was a show that I made $200 at. Like, we're still doing smaller shows. Like, to me, like, making $200 was like 3 or 4 times table costs. So like those are like super awesome to us. But and the other great thing about it is like John is the TV guy. Like, anybody that comes over to the table and they know they talk about television, they talk to him. Anybody that's video games, they talk to me. And between the two of us, we got all the bases covered. We could have a conversation with anybody that comes up to the table.
Nice. All right. Cool. Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm for myself, I always advise anyone marry a beautiful and fantastic artist. Put them behind the table, let them run it, and then you can go off and talk to other creators. That's always been my game plan. Yes, I get punched regularly.
I tried that.
It's funny, now that you mentioned it, is really interesting because I brought my fellow co-editor and writer Aaron Keepers to C2E2 with me, and it was weird because I would leave the table and then she's like, "Oh, I sold some books and everything," and I see the people leaving the table and then they're all guys, and then she'd go like, "Oh, I'm gonna go off and go see so and so." I'm like, "Okay," and then I was like, "Oh, I sold a bunch of stuff too," and then I realized like, "Oh, it's a bunch of girls." So we just like kept cycling in and out, doing like that. So that's fun. It's interesting to see that happen in real time.
Yeah, I always keep my phone on, and I always get it as I'm walking the floor, and I'm like, I get this phone call, and it's Daphne, and she's like, "Come back to the table. You gotta sign books. Why are you gone?" I'm like, I have to rush back.
That happens every time John walks away too. Like, you come over and I'll sell like 9 books, and I'm like, "Yeah, they're gonna come by for your signature then."
Exactly. And it's like, "Oh, where'd you go?" So, Mark, what advice you have? Because I know you walk around, but I'm pretty sure you have.
We have had tables. Yes. Mm-hmm. Just it goes back to having the right team, because my senior correspondent, he hates sitting at the table. And if we have a table, the point is you have to stay here to get people to get our stuff. He's like, "No," but he loves running around. But when we don't have tables, I'm the one that usually goes around and take pictures of all the booths and interacts. So I go send him off to go take the pictures and do my work while I sit at the table. So a good team at your table is something that you should always think of, and have a realistic goal of what you want to accomplish, not necessarily what you think you should accomplish. And lastly, before you even think about having a table, go to the convention, do your research, talk to other people, ask them what they do, see what you like, what you don't like, and incorporate that in your plan.
All right, cool. Good job. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. All you guys are fantastic. Much success, which I know is going to happen anyway. I don't even have to wish it on you. It's just going to happen. So, So, but thank you so much for being here. And before we go, though, we will start with Mr. Deandre. Please let everybody know where they can find you and your work, sir.
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at d.m.mcneal. And you can also check us out on Twitter at comics_Odyssey and visit odysseycomics.com. See all the stuff we're working on. We just threw a new page up for our next project. It's going to be titled U-Piece, coming from Rafael Dantes and Nathaniel Villanueva. It's a project really close to my heart because it's the first open submission that Odyssey Comics has developed. We took it from a kernel of an idea and grew it, and we're probably going to be launching the Kickstarter in March, but we're going to start talking about it right now, getting a lot of words out for it. You can go there, read the synopsis on the story, and subscribe and follow along for everything that we do. And find us on Facebook at Odyssey Comics.
Nice. Ryan, what do you got? Where can they find you and your work, sir?
All right, you can find me at ryancrobot.com, and that you can find a portal to all my social medias right through that website. Nice and easy.
Nice. John, where can they find you and your work, sir?
You can find me at johnedingfieldii.com, and it's the same thing. You can find all my socials there. It's just JEdingfieldii on everything.
Cool. Ray, where can they find you, sir?
My website, which I need to update, bxhtc.com, or you could Google Bronx Heroes, and we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even though I've been avoiding Twitter for the last almost a year, and Snapchat, a bunch of stuff. So just any social media you use, you can find us on there as Bronx Heroes, even Twitch. So.
No, there you go. Cool. Mark?
All right. As I always like to say, just Google It Came From the Radio. You can find us everywhere. We have a YouTube page, Facebook, Instagram, which I don't use too much, Twitter. We are on 40 different podcast places right now, such as iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. We are on 88.1 FM WARY in Westchester County as a terrestrial radio station, and we're on CentralOregonRadio.com every Saturday and Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. IndyVolt.com every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. BTDRadio.com, that's every Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sci-Fi.radio at every Wednesday, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, I've almost forgot. We have a live show every second Wednesday of the month. Our next live show, courtesy of the East Meadow Public Library in East Meadow, Long Island, is going to be on the 9th of February. Registration is open now. It's completely free. We have a photographer, videographer, and digital designer as our guest, Michael Zinn. You can go to www.eastmeadow.info for more information.
All right.
Cool. It's a good show. It's a really good show.
Yes, it is. It is. So I'm JD Calderon. You can find me here on YouTube under JD Calderon or Indy Comics Explained. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DeviantArt, all under JD Calderon. And also the OswaldChronicles.com and TallTalesOnline.com. So thank you so much, everybody. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And we'll be seeing you all soon. Take care.
Bye.
Peace.
While we were talking. Thanks.